Here's a question before we start. Have you ever had a song stuck in your head? Like, really stuck. Playing on loop. Driving you crazy. You can't make it stop no matter what you do. Now, imagine that. Except, it's not in your head. It's in your body. And instead of being annoying, it's killing you. Welcome to Strasbourg, 1518, where approximately 400 people danced themselves to death, and nobody knows why. This is the dancing plague, one of the strangest medical mysteries in history. And tonight, I'm going to tell you every bizarre, horrifying, fascinating detail. So get comfortable, maybe don't dance, and let me tell you about the summer when an entire city lost control of their bodies. Let's start with how it began. July 14, 1518, Strasbourg, a city in the Holy Roman Empire, modern-day France. A woman named Frau Troffea steps into the street, and she starts dancing. Not at a party, not at a festival, just in the street, alone. And she doesn't stop. She dances all day, and all night, and the next day, and the next night, for 6 days straight. No food, no water, no sleep. Just dancing. People watch, concerned, confused, scared. Frau Troffea, are you okay? She doesn't answer. She just dances. Her feet are bleeding. Her body is exhausted. But she can't stop. And then something even stranger happens. Other people start dancing too. Within a week, 34 people are dancing. Within a month, 400. Dancing in the streets, in their homes, everywhere. Day and night. No breaks, no rest. Some dance until they collapse from exhaustion. Some dance until they have heart attacks. Some dance until they die. And the city? The city has no idea what to do. Now, before we go further, let's address the obvious question. Is this real? Yes, completely real. We have historical records, city council documents, physician reports, eyewitness accounts. This isn't folklore. This isn't a myth. 400 people in Strasbourg danced uncontrollably for weeks, and dozens of them died. That's documented fact. What we don't know is why. And that's what makes this so unsettling. Because even today, 500 years later, we still don't have a definitive answer. We have theories, lots of theories, but no proof. And that's terrifying. Because if it happened once, could it happen again? But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to Strasbourg, July 1518. Picture the scene. It's hot, brutally hot. Summer in medieval Europe. The streets are narrow, crowded, filthy. This is before modern sanitation, before running water. Disease is everywhere. Poverty is everywhere. Life is hard. And then, in the middle of all this, Frau Troffea starts dancing. At first, people think she's drunk, or crazy, or possessed. Medieval people had 3 explanations for weird behavior: drunk, crazy, or demons. But Frau Troffea isn't drunk. She's coherent. She's aware. She's just dancing. And she can't stop. Her husband tries to restrain her. Can't. Her neighbors try to help. Can't. She dances for 6 days. And then on day 7, others join her. Now, here's where it gets complicated, because we don't know if these people were infected somehow, or if they saw Frau Troffea and thought, I should dance too, or something else entirely was happening. The sources from 1518 described it as a plague, but not a plague like bubonic plague, not a disease you catch from rats. a dancing plague, as if dancing itself were contagious. And in a way, it was. Within weeks, the streets of Strasbourg were filled with dancers. Hundreds of them. Men, women, children. Rich, poor, everyone. All dancing. All unable to stop. And people were dying. The exact death toll is unclear. Sources vary. Some say a dozen, some say dozens. Some say over 100. But people were definitely dying. From exhaustion, from heart failure, from strokes, dancing until their bodies gave out. And the city council? Panicking. They had no idea what to do. This had never happened before. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. There had been dancing manias before, smaller ones. In 1374, there was one in Aachen. In 1463, one in Strasbourg itself. But nothing like this. Nothing this big. Nothing this deadly. And the city needed a solution. So they consulted physicians. Medieval physicians, with medieval understanding of medicine. Which is to say, not great. Their diagnosis was hot blood. They believed the dancers had hot blood that was making them dance. The cure was more dancing. Yes, seriously. The city council's official response was to encourage the dancing. They hired musicians, built stages, created dance halls. The logic, if they dance it out, the hot blood will cool and they'll stop. This is like treating a broken leg by hitting it with a hammer. But that's what they did. They literally facilitated the dancing. And it made things worse. More people joined, more people died. The dancing spread, and the city was in chaos. Now, let's talk about what it actually looked like, because dancing sounds almost fun. It wasn't. These weren't coordinated dances, weren't joyful. Witnesses described it as violent, frenzied, desperate. People flailing, jerking, thrashing, eyes wide, mouth open, screaming sometimes. It looked like torture, because it was. Imagine, your body is moving, but you don't control it. You're exhausted, starving, dehydrated. Your feet are bleeding, your muscles are tearing, but you can't stop. Your brain is screaming stop, but your body won't listen. That's what the dancers experienced. And it went on for weeks. Some sources say it lasted 2 months. By the time it ended, Strasbourg was traumatized and confused. What had just happened? The physicians had no answer. The church said it was divine punishment. God was angry. Some blamed witchcraft, curses, demons. Some blamed the stars, bad astrological alignment. Nobody knew. And then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. By September 1518, the dancing had ended. The survivors recovered. Slowly, the dead were buried. And life went on. But the question remains, why? Why did 400 people dance themselves to death? And that question has haunted historians for 500 years. Let's talk about the theories, because we have several, and they're all fascinating.
Theory 1. Ergot poisoning. Ergot is a fungus that grows on rye. If you eat bread made from infected rye, you can get ergotism. Symptoms include hallucinations, convulsions, and involuntary movements. Sounds like dancing, right? Maybe. But there are problems with this theory. Ergot poisoning usually causes gangrene, necrosis, body parts literally dying. None of the Strasbourg dancers had that. Also, ergot hallucinations are typically terrifying, not dance-inducing. And 400 people all eating the same contaminated bread? Unlikely. So ergot probably isn't the answer. Theory 2. Mass psychogenic illness, also called mass hysteria. This is when stress, fear, or suggestion causes physical symptoms to spread through a group. It's real. It's documented. It happens. Examples? The laughing epidemic in Tanganyika, 1962. The mystery illness at a factory, multiple cases. When groups of people under extreme stress, they develop symptoms because they see others with symptoms. It's psychological, but the symptoms are real. Could this explain Strasbourg? Maybe. 1518 was a terrible time. Famine, disease, religious turmoil, war. People were stressed, terrified, desperate. In that environment, seeing one person dance uncontrollably could trigger others to do the same. Not consciously, not on purpose, but as a psychological response to overwhelming stress. This theory has the most support among modern researchers, but it's not perfect, because mass hysteria usually affects specific demographics: young women, children, close-knit groups. The Strasbourg plague affected everyone: men, women, old, young, rich, poor. That's unusual for mass hysteria, so maybe it's not the full answer either. Theory 3. Religious ecstasy or trance state. In medieval Europe, religious fervor sometimes manifested as physical behavior: flagellants whipping themselves, pilgrims walking on their knees for miles. Maybe the dancing was a form of religious ecstasy, a trance state induced by extreme faith or fear of divine punishment. There's some historical precedent. Dancing manias in the Middle Ages were often associated with religious sites. People would dance to honor saints or to appease God. Maybe Strasbourg was similar. But again, problems. The dancers weren't joyful, they were suffering. And they didn't stop at churches, they danced everywhere. So religious ecstasy doesn't fully explain it either. Theory 4. Epilepsy or neurological disease. Could a brain disorder cause involuntary dancing? Technically, yes. There are conditions that cause movement disorders: Huntington's disease, Sydenham's chorea. But these don't spread, they're not contagious, and they don't cause 400 people to suddenly develop the same symptoms. So while neurology might explain individual cases, it doesn't explain the epidemic. Theory 5. It was staged. A social protest. Some historians suggest the dancing was intentional, a form of rebellion against authority. In 1518, Strasbourg was oppressed, overtaxed, suffering. Maybe the dancing was a statement: you're working us to death, so we'll dance ourselves to death instead. It's an interesting idea, but the sources describe genuine suffering, real deaths. So if it was performance, people committed to the bit way too hard. So this theory is unlikely. The truth? Probably a combination. Stress-induced mass hysteria triggered by one person spread through a population already on the edge. Add medieval beliefs about curses and divine punishment, and you get a feedback loop. People see others dancing, stress makes them susceptible, they start dancing. More people dance, more stress, more dancers. Until 400 people are trapped in a nightmare they can't escape. That's the leading theory. But we'll never know for sure, because the dancers are dead, and their reasons died with them. Now, before we move to part 2, let's talk about something modern. Because this isn't just a medieval curiosity, it's a warning. Mass psychogenic illness still happens. 2011, a school in New York. Multiple students develop tics and seizures. Doctors find no physical cause, eventually diagnosed as mass hysteria. 2019, a TikTok trend where people fake Tourette's tics, except some people start genuinely developing tics from watching the videos. Their brains literally adopt the behavior. That's how powerful suggestion is. We like to think we're rational, in control, but under stress, with the right triggers, our brains can betray us. We can adopt behaviors we see, even harmful ones, without consciously choosing to. The dancing plague is an extreme example, but the mechanism still present, still dangerous, still poorly understood. All right, let's pause here. Take a breath, maybe stretch, definitely don't dance. When we come back, we're going deeper into the psychology, the medieval context, the aftermath, and why this story still matters. See you in part 2.
Welcome back. If you fell asleep, sweet dreams. If you're still here, let's continue. We left off with theories. Now let's talk about context. Because to understand why this happened, we need to understand where and when it happened. Strasbourg, 1518. Let's paint the picture. This is the Holy Roman Empire. Technically, a patchwork of territories, cities, and princedoms loosely governed by an emperor nobody really listens to. Strasbourg itself is a free imperial city, which means it governed itself, has its own laws, its own problems, and in 1518 it had a lot of problems. First, famine. The previous decade had been brutal. Crop failures, harsh winters, food shortages. People were starving, literally. Not I skipped lunch starving. I haven't eaten in days starving. Malnutrition was everywhere. And malnutrition affects the brain. It causes hallucinations, confusion, erratic behavior, so the population was already mentally compromised. Second, disease. This is before germ theory, before antibiotics, before modern medicine. Disease was constant. Smallpox, typhus, dysentery, syphilis. The average person was probably sick with something at any given time, and watching people die was normal. Death was everywhere. So people were already traumatized, already on edge. Third, religious terror. This is just after the Protestant Reformation started. Martin Luther posted his 95 Theses in 1517, 1 year before the dancing. The Catholic Church was fracturing. Religious authority was being questioned, and that terrified people. Because in medieval Europe, religion wasn't just belief, it was structure. It was the explanation for everything. Why does it rain? God. Why did my child die? God's will. Why is there suffering? Sin. Religion provided answers, and now those answers were being challenged. People didn't know what to believe anymore. And into this chaos of famine, disease, and religious upheaval, Frau Troffea starts dancing, and people see it as a sign. God is punishing us. We've sinned. We've angered him. And the dancing is the proof. That's the medieval mindset. Everything is divine. Everything is a message. So when the dancing spreads, it's not just a medical mystery, it's a theological crisis. The church's response? Pray harder. They organized processions, pilgrimages, mass prayers. They brought out relics, saints' bones, holy water. They even took the dancers to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus, because Saint Vitus was the patron saint of dancing. Yes, there's a patron saint of dancing. Medieval Catholicism had a saint for everything. The logic, if the dancing is divine punishment, appeal to the right saint and it'll stop. Did it work? No. People kept dancing and dying. Meanwhile, the city council is trying practical solutions. They ban music, ban dancing in general. Doesn't work. People dance anyway. They build stages and dance halls. Even worse. They're trying everything. Nothing works because they don't understand what they're dealing with. And here's the thing, neither do we, not fully. Even with modern science, psychology, neurology, we still can't say with 100% certainty what caused this. We can theorize, we can guess, but we don't know. And that's unsettling because it means it could happen again. Maybe not dancing, maybe something else, but mass psychogenic illness still happens. Let's talk about some modern examples, because this isn't ancient history, this is ongoing. Example 1, the Tanganyika laughter epidemic, 1962. A boarding school in Tanzania. 3 girls start laughing, can't stop. The laughter spreads. Within days, 95 students are affected. The school closes, the students go home, the laughter spreads to their villages. Eventually, over 1,000 people are affected, laughing uncontrollably for weeks. It's not funny laughter, it's distressing, painful. Eventually, it stops, but nobody knows why it started. Diagnosis: mass psychogenic illness, stress-induced. Sound familiar? Example 2. Bin Laden itch, 2001. After 9/11, dozens of schools in the US reported mysterious rashes, students breaking out in hives, scratching, itching. Doctors found no physical cause, no allergens, no toxins, nothing. Diagnosis: mass psychogenic illness, triggered by stress and fear. The fear of terrorism manifested as physical symptoms. Example 3. TikTok tics, 2019-2021. Teenage girls watching TikTok videos of people with Tourette's syndrome start developing tics themselves. Real tics, not fake. Their brains actually adopt the behavior. Doctors call it functional neurological disorder. Basically, your brain sees a behavior and under stress, it mimics it, without your conscious control. That's terrifying because it means your brain can betray you. You can watch a video and your body can start doing what you saw, not because you want to, because your brain is wired to imitate. And under stress, that wiring goes haywire. That's the same mechanism as the dancing plague. People saw Frau Troffea dancing. Their stressed, traumatized brains latched onto that behavior, and they started dancing too. Not consciously, not on purpose. Their brains just did it. And once it started, it spread. Because humans are social animals. We mirror each other. It's how we learn, how we bond, but it's also how we spread illness. Not just physical illness, psychological illness. Behaviors, emotions, stress, all contagious. Now, let's talk about why Strasbourg specifically. Because dancing manias happened elsewhere, but not on this scale. What made Strasbourg different? A few things. First, population density. Strasbourg was a city, crowded, people living on top of each other. When one person starts dancing, everyone sees it. In a rural village, one person dancing might go unnoticed. In a city, it's a spectacle. Second, stress levels. Strasbourg in 1518 was uniquely terrible. Famine, disease, religious upheaval, political instability, it was a powder keg. Frau Troffea was the spark. Third, the city's response. By building stages and hiring musicians, they validated the dancing. They made it official. That probably made more people susceptible. Like, the city is encouraging this, so maybe it's okay. Maybe I should join. It's like if your boss said, everyone's having panic attacks, so we've built a panic room. You'd be more likely to panic. Fourth, medieval beliefs. The idea that dancing could be caused by curses or saints. People believed in that. So when they saw others dancing, they thought, I might be cursed too. And belief is powerful. If you believe you're cursed, your brain might make it real. That's the nocebo effect, the evil twin of the placebo effect. If you believe something will harm you, it can, even if there's no physical cause. So all these factors combined, stress, proximity, validation, belief, created the perfect storm for mass hysteria, and 400 people danced. Now let's talk about the aftermath. By September 1518, the dancing had stopped. Why? Nobody knows. Maybe the stress reduced, maybe the city's prayers worked, doubtful. Maybe people just got over it. Mass hysteria typically burns out. Once the initial trigger is removed or normalized, people recover. But the damage was done. Dozens dead, hundreds traumatized. Strasbourg buried its dead and tried to move on. The city council banned public dancing for a while. The church held services of thanksgiving. Physicians wrote reports. And then, everyone kind of forgot about it. For centuries, the dancing plague was a footnote. a weird medieval story that historians mentioned but didn't take seriously. Until the 20th century, when psychologists started studying mass hysteria, and they realized this was real. This was a documented case of mass psychogenic illness, and it could teach us something about stress, about social contagion, about the human brain. Because here's the scary part. The dancing plague could happen again. Not dancing specifically, but something similar. Mass hysteria doesn't need a medieval setting. It just needs stress and the trigger. And modern life? Stressful. Social media? A perfect trigger. Think about it. We're more connected than ever. We see each other constantly, online, in person, everywhere. We mirror each other, copy each other. Trends spread in hours. And stress? Everywhere. Economic anxiety, political division, climate fear, pandemic trauma. We're living in our own version of Strasbourg 1518, just with better plumbing. So what's stopping a modern dancing plague? Maybe nothing. Maybe we've already had them. The TikTok tics, the mystery rashes, the fainting epidemics. Small scale, contained, but the mechanism is the same. And if the stress gets bad enough, who knows? Maybe one day people will start doing something uncontrollably. Not dancing, something else. And it'll spread. And future historians will say, how did that happen? Just like we ask about Strasbourg. All right, let's pause again, because this is getting dark, and that's not the point. The point isn't to scare you. The point is to understand. Humans are fragile. Our brains are complex. And under stress, weird things happen. That's not a bug, that's a feature. Our brains are designed to adapt, to survive. Sometimes that adaptation looks like dancing until you die. That's tragic, but it's also fascinating. In part 3, we'll wrap this up. Talk about what we can learn, why it matters, and how to avoid being the next Frau Troffea. See you in a minute. Welcome to the final part. If you're still awake, congrats. If you're asleep, I hope you're not dancing in your dreams. Let's bring this home. We've talked about what happened, we've talked about why. Now let's talk about what it means. Because the dancing plague isn't just a weird story, it's a mirror. It shows us something about human nature, something uncomfortable, something important. First lesson, we're not as rational as we think. We like to believe we're in control, that our brains are ours, that we make conscious decisions. But the dancing plague shows that's not always true. Under the right conditions, your brain can make you do things you don't want to do. Not hypothetically, actually. Frau Troffea didn't choose to dance. Her brain just did it. And that's terrifying, because it means we're vulnerable to stress, to suggestion, to our own neurology. We're not the masters of our minds. We're just passengers. Most of the time we're driving, but sometimes the brain takes over, and there's nothing we can do. Second lesson, stress is dangerous, not just mentally, physically. The people of Strasbourg weren't weak, they were stressed. Years of famine, disease, fear. Their brains were fried. And when Frau Troffea started dancing, their defenses were down, so they copied her. Not consciously, their brains just latched on. That's what chronic stress does. It breaks down your mental immune system, makes you susceptible to suggestion, to contagion. And modern life, chronic stress everywhere. Work stress, financial stress, social media stress. We're all running on empty. And that makes us vulnerable. To what? Who knows? Maybe not dancing, but something. Third lesson, social contagion is real. We mirror each other. It's automatic, subconscious. See someone yawn? You yawn. See someone smile? You smile. See someone dance uncontrollably? You might too, under the right conditions. This isn't mystical, it's neuroscience. Mirror neurons, social learning. We're wired to copy each other. That's how we learn language, how we develop empathy. But it's also how we spread illness. Not just viruses, behaviors. And in the age of social media, behaviors spread faster than ever. TikTok challenges, viral trends, mass movements, all driven by the same mechanism that caused the dancing plague. See, copy, spread. Fourth lesson, belief shapes reality. If you believe you're cursed, your brain might make it real. The people of Strasbourg believed in divine punishment. They believed saints could cause dancing, and that belief made them susceptible. Their brains said, this is possible, and made it happen. That's the power of belief, and it works both ways. Placebo effect, believe you'll get better, you might. Nocebo effect, believe you'll get sick, you might. Your beliefs shape your neurology. That's not woo-woo, that's science. So be careful what you believe, because your brain is listening. Fifth lesson, we need better mental health support. The people of Strasbourg were suffering. Trauma, starvation, fear. They needed help. Instead, they got musicians and stages. The city tried to cure a psychological crisis with entertainment. It didn't work, because entertainment doesn't fix trauma. Therapy does, support does, safety does. And we're making the same mistake today. People are stressed, anxious, depressed, and we offer them apps, self-care tips. Just think positive. That's not enough. We need systemic support, economic security, healthcare, community. Otherwise, we're just setting up stages for the next dancing plague. Sixth lesson, history repeats. Not exactly, but patterns repeat. Strasbourg 1518, Tanganyika 1962, TikTok 2021. Same mechanism, different manifestation. Stress plus trigger plus social contagion equals mass hysteria. The specifics change, the structure doesn't. And unless we address the root causes, stress, trauma, inequality, it'll keep happening. Maybe the next one won't be dancing. Maybe it'll be something weirder. But it'll happen, because humans haven't changed. Our brains work the same way they did 500 years ago. We're just as vulnerable, just as fragile, just as capable of losing control. Now let's talk about empathy, because it's easy to laugh at the dancing plague. Those medieval idiots danced themselves to death. How dumb. But they weren't idiots. They were traumatized people in a nightmare situation. They didn't choose to dance. Their brains betrayed them, and they suffered and died. And that deserves empathy, not mockery. Same with modern cases. The girls with TikTok tics aren't faking. The students with mystery rashes aren't lying. Their symptoms are real. Caused by psychological stress, yes, but real. And dismissing them as crazy or attention-seeking doesn't help. It makes it worse, because stigma adds stress, and stress perpetuates the cycle. So instead of judgment, try understanding. These are people whose brains are struggling. They need support, not shame. That's the compassionate response, and the smart one, because any of us could be next. Under the right conditions, your brain could betray you too. So let's talk prevention. How do you avoid being the next Frau Troffea? First, manage stress. Chronic stress is the foundation of mass hysteria. Reduce it where you can. Sleep, exercise, therapy, boundaries, whatever works for you. Second, limit exposure to triggering content. If watching videos of people with tics makes you develop tics, stop watching. Your brain is impressionable. Protect it. Third, build resilience. Strong social support, healthy routines, purpose. These buffer against stress, make you less susceptible to contagion. Fourth, critical thinking. Question what you see. Just because everyone's doing something doesn't mean you should. Your brain wants to copy. Resist when necessary. Fifth, seek help early. If you notice yourself adopting behaviors you don't want, talk to someone. A therapist, a doctor, a friend. Don't wait until you're dancing for 6 days straight. Sixth, systemic change. Individual actions help,
But societal stress requires societal solutions: economic security, healthcare access, community. Otherwise, the dancing plagues will continue. Now, final thoughts. The dancing plague of 1518 is a tragedy. People suffered. People died. For reasons they didn't understand. And we still don't fully understand. But it's also a lesson about the human brain, about stress, about social contagion, about how fragile we are, and how resilient. Because Strasbourg recovered, the survivors moved on, life continued. Even after horror, humans adapt. We survive. That's hopeful. Even in the darkest moments, we endure. But we can do better than endure. We can learn. We can address the stress, the trauma, the inequality. We can build a world where people don't dance themselves to death, where brains don't betray their owners, where crises are met with compassion, not stages and musicians. That's the goal. And it starts with understanding. Understanding what happened in Strasbourg. Understanding what's happening now. Understanding ourselves, our brains, our vulnerabilities, our potential. Because we're capable of amazing things and terrible things, sometimes simultaneously. The dancing plague is both, a testament to human fragility and human resilience, a warning and a lesson. And 500 years later, we're still learning from it. So the next time you hear about a weird mass illness, don't laugh, don't dismiss. Ask, what stress caused this? What can we learn? How can we help? Because it could be you. It could be me. Under the right circumstances, any of us could lose control. That's not weakness. That's being human. And being human is complicated, beautiful, tragic, fascinating, just like the dancing plague. All right, we're done. You made it. Or you fell asleep in part 2. Either way, thanks for listening. If this made you think, great. If this helped you sleep, even better. And if you're now terrified of dancing, maybe take a break from TikTok. Sweet dreams. And remember, your brain is powerful, but it's also fragile. Treat it well.